Ladies and gentlemen, today's exciting because I essentially get to be Jerry Springer. That is right, in this video, we are going to find out if two characters from two different Black Ops games are related. And this is an interesting one because we're actually going to be looking at a zombies character, a very minor zombies character from Black Ops Cold War, and then comparing them to a multiplayer specialist who's one of the first DLC specialists within Black Ops 4. It just so turns out that Dr. Vogel in Black Ops Cold War Zombies might just be the great-grandfather or grandfather of Lenny Vogel, Zero. So today, myself, Jerry Springer, we're gonna find out who the grandfather is. But to do so, we first have to dive into each of the characters' backstories and see what similarities they actually have.
Ulrich Vogel, director of Project N Station, 19th of March 1944.
So both of these characters' backstories are relatively small, so it's actually not going to take us very long to do this. So first of all, we have Dr. Ulrich Vogel, who is the director at Project N Station. Essentially, he was the doctor in charge of testing out these zombies and the ether and things along those lines. In other words, he was an incredibly smart doctor working for the Germans during World War II. So obviously, he was kind of working for the bad guys during World War II, and therefore, you can call him an evil scientist. Now, the only big takeaway from that scene that we listened to there is he was working at Project N Station in 1944. And since he looks older as a ghost as we are seeing him here, you can kind of get an idea that he was older at this time. So let's just say, for simplicity's sake, he was probably born somewhere around the early 1900s and was working for the Germans during World War II. So next we have Zero, aka Lenny Vogel, and Zero is an interesting character because there's a lot more mystery around her than you may think. First of all, as far as the Black Ops operators go in Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4, there aren't really any German operators, and the reason for that is because these operators in Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4 are part of the Winslow Accord, and basically the guys who are there in opposition with include Germany in the opposing forces. So basically, when we see Zero come into the Winslow Accord from Germany, we basically know that she's turning on her own country, and it just so turns out that her background is in hacking. She's basically a hacker for the Winslow Accord. Another thing that makes Zero a little bit more interesting is that there's no cutscene or anything with her in it, and on top of that, they didn't even put a bio for her in the game. So they did kind of put this out in a daily message way back in Black Ops 4, but this gives us a background a little bit more on Lenny Vogel. This is where we actually find her name. It can't be found anywhere else other than on this page, and of course now on her Wikipedia. But basically the background of Lenny Vogel, or Zero, is that she is an incredibly smart hacker who specializes in putting viruses on computers. And we're gonna play a little bit more into that in a bit, but essentially, at this point, we can kind of get an idea of why these two would be related. I want to look at the evidence at this point. First of all, we already know that Treyarch has done this once. I made a separate video talking about Baker and Aaron Baker, aka Battery in Black Ops 3 and 4, and how they are related and the military family completely lines up. If you haven't checked out that video, I will link it down in the description, but it's basically explaining that. I'm not going to go over all of the evidence in this video, but by the end of that video, it's pretty clear that they are great-grandfather and granddaughter and lines up pretty well. So it's not the first time we've investigated something like this. So then our other big pieces of evidence are, first of all, that Dr. Vogel is a genius. We also know that on top of this, Lenny Vogel, Zero, is also a genius, and it's often said that brilliance runs in the family. They're also both German, both with the exact same last name, Vogel. That in itself doesn't mean that they're related. There's a lot of Vogels, especially in Germany, so that doesn't necessarily limit it down. But the fact that they would put them in the same series, both in Black Ops Cold War and Black Ops 4, really hints to me that they're trying to make a connection there, and the fact that they're both brilliant in their characters helps with that. So as for right now, I'm gonna, as Jerry Springer, decide that Ulrich Vogel is indeed the grandfather. Okay, it's actually a lot more likely that he's the great-grandfather, but you get the point. So we've decided that these two are related. Again, it can't be 100% proved, so that's one theory we've looked at. Now, if these two are related, it adds a really cool storyline between the Zombies universe and the future of the Black Ops universe with actually the Black Ops 3 campaign. Let me explain. So a few years ago, I made a video talking about Zero and talking about the theory as to who Zero is and why she's a part of the Winslow Accord, and specifically why she was not in Black Ops 3. And in that video, I essentially came to the conclusion that this character, Lenny Vogel, or Zero, was actually the one to create the hack that created Corvus in Black Ops 3. And again, that is just a theory, but what you need to know about Corvus and the Black Ops 3 story as a whole is basically this virus would directly interact with a character's DNI, or direct neural interface, and cause them to do things out of their control, like kill other people or even kill themselves. And based off of our speculation, this was a virus that Zero, or Lenny Vogel, actually created. Now, one thing that is actually described in Black Ops 3 is these characters or soldiers affected by the virus basically become zombies of themselves because they're being controlled by an outward force, something that they can't personally themselves control. So using technology, Zero essentially created a virus that makes these people zombies. Now, if you look at Dr. Ulrich Vogel, or aka the great-grandfather, he is doing a very similar thing, but with not a computer virus, a literal virus that turns people into zombies. So just another reason in how their stories could cross over is basically Zero is using a futurized version of what Dr. Ulrich was doing with zombies to create soldier zombies in a different way, which is super interesting. Both of them German, both of them the same last name, and essentially doing very similar work, just in a different time period. In fact, it actually takes place nearly exactly 100 years apart. So, is any of this confirmed? No, none of this is confirmed, and I can't say 100% that Dr. Vogel is indeed the grandfather of Zero. But this theory that I talked about Zero making the virus that was in Corvus, and then that killing soldiers by making them zombies, and that being tied to her grandfather's work in Black Ops Cold War Zombies, adds a lot to both characters. I think even if this is a theory, it is one that adds a plethora of story in a really good way to two characters who really don't have that much backstory. So, can I confirm that this is 100% true? No, but it adds a lot to the story, and it does make sense. Both of them being German, same last name, and working kind of in the same field really lines up, even though this is 100 years apart. So now I want to hear what you guys have to say. What do you think about this theory? Do you think they're related, or are they two completely separate characters that just so happen to have the same last name in the same universe? Let me know what you think down in the comments. And as per usual, if you enjoyed the video, always appreciate it if you hit that like button. New to the channel, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on everything Call of Duty. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.
We are reaching for